Could a city be born without kings, without ancient ruins, without the blessing of empires, and still become the most powerful place on earth? Forget everything you think you know about how great cities are made, because the story of New York isn't about inheritance. It's about an ambition so fierce it changed the world. Before the towering skyline cut into the clouds, before the electric glow turned night into day, before the sprawling metropolis became known as the city that never sleeps, there was only wilderness. A wild, untamed land where rivers met the ocean, a place of quiet forests and forgotten shores. And then, against all odds, came New York City. This wasn't a city handed down through royal decree, nor was it carved out by ancient conquerors. New York was forged from a different kind of fire. It was built, brick by brick and dream by dream, from the relentless, audacious spirit of ambition itself. This is the story of how a barren land transformed into a legend, a testament to what happens when human will refuses to be contained. In the early 1600s, when much of the New World was still a mystery, European powers were scrambling to claim their piece of the pie. The Dutch, shrewd merchants with an eye for opportunity, sailed into a vast natural harbor that would eventually become the Upper New York Bay. They saw not just a wilderness, but a gold mine waiting to happen. In 1624, they established a small trading post, quaintly named New Amsterdam. It wasn't about conquest or grand empires back then. It was about beaver pelts. Furs were the gold standard of the 17th century, highly coveted in Europe for hats, coats, and status symbols. And this new settlement was perfectly placed. Imagine the strategic brilliance: a deep, sheltered harbor on one side, leading out to the Atlantic Ocean, and on the other, the mighty Hudson River, stretching hundreds of miles inland, a natural highway connecting traders to vast trapping grounds. This isn't just geography, it's destiny. From its very first breath, commerce wasn't just a part of New Amsterdam. It was New Amsterdam. Every decision, every structure, every negotiation revolved around trade. The Dutch West India Company, the driving force behind the colony, wasn't interested in idle settlers. They wanted entrepreneurs, workers, and traders. This created a melting pot from the very beginning. Records show that by 1643, 18 different languages were spoken among the just 500 inhabitants. People came from all over Europe, not for religious freedom or aristocratic titles, but for the chance to make a living, to trade, to prosper. This constant hustle ingrained a fundamental truth into the city's DNA. It was never meant to be quiet. It was meant to move. It was meant to buy, sell, exchange, and adapt. The energy was palpable even then, a bustling waterfront, ships arriving and departing, goods being loaded and unloaded, deals being struck in taverns. The early Dutch settlers, known for their pragmatic approach to life, built solid brick homes, often with gabled roofs, and laid out narrow, winding streets that would one day form the foundations of what we now know as Lower Manhattan. Even the famous Wall Street gets its name from a defensive wooden wall built by the Dutch to protect against English and Native American attacks. Every brick, every plank, every contract was a testament to the fact that this city wasn't designed for slow, pastoral living. It was designed for growth, for profit, for the constant hum of activity. This relentless drive for commerce, this insatiable appetite for economic movement, was the spark that would ignite an unstoppable urban engine. It was the first crucial chapter in building a city that would one day dominate the world stage. The 17th century was about pelts and pragmatism, but the 20th century, that's when New York truly began its ascent into myth. This was the era of monumental change, an age where human ingenuity and sheer grit conspired to reshape the very landscape. Steel arrived, and with it, everything shifted. Suddenly, buildings weren't limited by stone and brick. They could soar. Architects and engineers, armed with new technologies like the Otis safety elevator and the steel-framed skeleton, began a race towards the heavens. This wasn't just about building taller, it was about building bolder. The skyline became more than just a collection of structures. It became a living, breathing symbol. A symbol of human possibility, of endless ambition, of a city reaching for the clouds with audacious confidence. Think of the Chrysler Building, a glittering Art Deco masterpiece, or the Empire State Building, which for decades stood as the tallest man-made structure in the world. These weren't just offices, they were statements. Statements that New York was unyielding, innovative, and utterly fearless. They inspired awe and for millions, hope. Because as the steel rose, so did the tides of humanity. The early 20th century saw an unparalleled wave of immigration. Millions poured into New York Harbor, passing through Ellis Island, carrying little more than the clothes on their backs, a few worn possessions, and an unshakable dream. They arrived speaking different languages, with different customs, from every corner of the globe. Italy, Ireland, Germany, Eastern Europe, China, the Caribbean. They weren't coming for comfort. They were coming for opportunity. They had nothing, yet they built everything. These immigrants, often facing prejudice and hardship, took the toughest jobs. They dug the subway tunnels, laid the streetcar tracks, hammered the rivets into those soaring steel beams, and stitched together the garments in the garment district. They opened small businesses, worked in factories, and started families in cramped tenements. They learned English, adapted, and infused the city with their cultures, their food, their music, their resilience. They didn't just build the infrastructure, they built the very identity of New York. The city didn't offer a soft landing or a guaranteed life of ease. It offered a chance, a brutal, demanding, exhilarating chance. It was a place where if you were willing to work harder than anyone else, to endure more, to push further, you could carve out a life for yourself and your family. New York promised opportunity, a shot at a better future, but it never ever promised comfort. And that's precisely why it became the magnetic force it is today. This constant churning cycle of arrival, struggle, and eventual triumph is the very heartbeat of New York, a rhythm that echoes through every street and every skyscraper. If the 20th century was about building up, the mid-20th century onwards was about spreading out. Its influence, that is. New York City wasn't content to just pierce the clouds. It wanted to dominate the global stage. And dominate it did. The city became the undisputed capital of power, not just locally, but internationally. Look no further than Wall Street. What began as a defensive wall for a small Dutch settlement morphed into the epicenter of global finance. Billions, even trillions of dollars moved through its hallowed halls every day. Investment banks, stock exchanges, and financial institutions here didn't just handle transactions. They reshaped global economies. Decisions made in those glass towers reverberated across continents, impacting markets, industries, and livelihoods worldwide. Wall Street wasn't just a street. It was a force of nature, a high-stakes arena where fortunes were made and lost, defining the very pulse of capitalism. But New York's power wasn't just economic. Its cultural influence was equally immense. Broadway, with its dazzling marquees and world-class theaters, became the gold standard for live performance. From groundbreaking musicals to dramatic plays, Broadway defined what was possible on stage, drawing audiences and talent from every corner of the globe. It wasn't just entertainment, it was art, innovation, and a vibrant reflection of society itself. New York's museums, galleries, music venues, and fashion houses also became global benchmarks. The city became the birthplace and proving ground for countless artistic movements, from the jazz age to pop art, from punk rock to hip-hop. Here, culture, money, and media didn't just coexist. They converged, they collided, they amplified each other. Madison Avenue became synonymous with advertising, defining how the world communicated and consumed. Publishing houses in New York dictated literary trends, while its newsrooms set the global agenda. This incredible concentration of influence transformed New York into a global stage. It became the place where groundbreaking ideas were born, where trends were set, where the world's biggest stories unfolded. The message was clear, a whisper and a roar that echoed through its avenues. If you could make it here, if you could succeed in this cauldron of competition, creativity, and cutthroat ambition, you could succeed anywhere. This wasn't just a saying, it was a lived reality for millions who flocked to the city, testing their mettle against the best and brightest, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. The city didn't just invite ambition, it demanded it, it refined it, and in doing so, it became the undisputed crucible of global power. Today, New York City glows differently than it did in its early days. It's not ancient like Rome or Athens, but it is legendary, etched into the collective consciousness of humanity. The narrow, winding streets of New Amsterdam have given way to towering skyscrapers. The bustling docks are still there, but now they hum with the commerce of a digital age. Yet the core essence, that relentless ambition, still fuels every single heartbeat of this modern empire. Walk its streets. and you feel it. In the rush of the morning commute, in the endless construction cranes adding new layers to the sky, in the relentless pursuit of innovation in its tech startups, and in the quiet determination of artists and entrepreneurs striving for their big break. This city is a living testament to an enduring spirit of opportunity, a place where people continue to arrive with big dreams and even bigger work ethics. New York continues to be a magnet for talent, for capital, for culture. It's a place where old money rubs shoulders with new money, where established institutions are constantly challenged by disruptive newcomers. It's a city that never stops evolving, never stops reinventing itself. It absorbed devastating blows, from economic downturns to tragic events, and each time it rose again, stronger, more resilient, and even more determined. Because New York teaches one fundamental, undeniable truth, a lesson carved into its very foundations. Power is not inherited. It is not a birthright passed down through generations of royalty or aristocracy. Power in New York is built. It's built with grit, with sacrifice, with relentless effort, with an unyielding belief in what's possible. It's built by those who arrive with nothing but a dream and the courage to chase it. It's built in every startup that defies the odds, every artist who perfects their craft, every financier who makes a groundbreaking deal, every immigrant who builds a new life. This city, from its marshy beginnings to its dazzling present, stands as the ultimate monument to human ambition. And it's a story that's still being written, brick by ambitious brick. Want to explore another city that defied expectations? Make sure to check out our next video right here.